Okay, guys. So I will get started, and then I'll just keep letting people in as they arrive. So thank you so much for showing up last minute. I know this is like a last minute thing, and I just wanted to show you all that I am alive, and I'm in one piece, and touch base with everyone and say, I'm gonna try not to get emotional through this too. Try not to. I want to say thanks to everyone for so much support through this. It was a really, really crazy last 10 days. And I see that some of my girlfriends went ahead and put a little GoFundMe together, and some of you have already stepped up for me. And I really, really appreciate the support. It's amazing. And yeah, I thought I would, obviously, you guys are like my family. You're my athletes, but you're my family, and we're all there for each other. And I just wanted to and let you know that I'm home and recovering, but I wanted to share how things went because it wasn't as simple and normal as the bike crash and then a couple broken ribs, and it kind of escalated into a pretty crazy story. So I thought it might be helpful for everyone to hear how it all went down, and just give me the chance to thank everyone for their support. And I'll try and keep it somewhat, uh, you know, somewhat short as I can. But so I was doing a group ride that I do every single Saturday. Alternate between a couple of different hard rides here in Tucson. I wasn't doing anything that I don't do all of the time. So it wasn't like anything out of my normal. I certainly wasn't taking any risks that I don't, it's like part of my routine I've been riding bikes for 25 years. But there was there's a really fast downhill section and then a really fast sprint. And in those situations, there's always kind of a lead out wheel, and it got kind of squishy right before the sprint. And funny enough, the sprint is to a hospital sign, which is hilarious. I was like, coming in hot to the hospital. But and it just got really squishy, and someone came in from the left to kind of take the lead out wheel that I had and bump me with their shoulder. And when you're going 45 miles an hour and you start bumping and someone's a lot bigger than you, I mean, Ben, you can remember when you and Eddie started bumping shoulders. There's not a whole lot. I mean, you can try and save it, but my front tire actually flatted, and the tire came off the rim at that speed when you start bumping like that. And then all I remember is bumping back and forth, and then the next thing I remember is waking up and the whole group around me. And so from there, luckily I didn't hit anything that was stopped. That would have been really bad. I slid for a long ways, but I flipped, and then obviously my back hit the ground and slid for a long ways. And then I thought I was okay, and I sat on the curb and I was like, I think I'm okay. And everyone was like, do you want an ambulance? And I said, no, I think I'm okay. So the guy called me an Uber to take me home. My bike wasn't functional. And I got in the Uber, and the adrenaline started to wear off, and the pain started to set in. And actually, funny enough, that's when Ben, he was texting me, and Ben and I were used to texting each other fairly like a quick response with training questions, or like, hey, I need an adjustment on the training plan. What should I do? And I couldn't actually, what started to happen when the pain started hitting, I couldn't breathe. I could breathe out, but I couldn't breathe in. And I was fighting between like trying to get little sips of air in. And so when I called, I don't even really actually remember what I said to you, Ben, at all. All I remember is at some point I started just hanging up on people because I was fighting between getting words in and air in. And so I Ubered home, and I quickly realized I wasn't okay. I was like, okay, I'm not okay. I really need to go to the ER. Went to the ER at Banner. A couple friends showed up pretty quickly that lived nearby, took me to Banner. And this is where, I learned a really valuable lesson. I'm hoping as I tell this story that if this ever comes your way, or at least you can learn from me. I went to the emergency room. I really couldn't breathe, and I was in a lot of pain, but I'm the type of person, I don't really create a scene when I'm in a lot of pain. And it's hard for people to tell I'm in a lot of pain. And I think we're all a little like that, right? Athletes are conditioned to pain, and we also have a different tolerance than normal people. And so people, my friends could tell I was in a lot of pain because I started shaking a little bit and I couldn't breathe in. But to anyone else, I might have not looked really that bad. Um, they admitted they got me in pretty quickly, and of course, because of the speed of my crash and the way my helmet looked, the trauma team went to come at me, full tilt with everything, and they gave me IV fentanyl, which is pretty strong. So the pain subsided enough I could get a little bit of air in. And when that happened, this is mistake number where the mistake happened. I have and I'll be reviewing this and fixing this situation after this. I have really, really bad medical insurance. And because I've never had to use it, I've never reviewed the policy and understood what it's like, but I always knew it was pretty shit. And I thought, oh, it's just for catastrophic, but I didn't know about the American system, the in-network, out-of-network stuff, any of that, those kinds of things, and how all that works. And so, but I knew it was shit, and so I started refusing treatment because they wanted to go crazy with scans and everything. They wanted to put me in a neck brace and scan my pelvis and ultrasound my insides, like all of these things because of the speed of the crash. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I think I just have a couple fractured ribs. I'm okay. And I refused treatment, and they did an x-ray on my ribs, which the x-ray couldn't really show much because of all the fluid that was building up, and it was just a shit x-ray. And so because I refused treatment because I was terrified about my insurance, they sent me home after about 6 hours of sitting there. And I went home, and I kept thinking I was okay. I thought it was just a couple fractured ribs, and I've had dislocated ribs before, and I know they're pretty painful, but this was like, I kept saying, I was like, this seems different. And I actually as you guys know, I went through the whole week. I worked, I did a pretty normal week. You'll laugh at this. I even got on my trainer after a few days just indoors, and I started to spin on my trainer at 50 watts, which for me is pretty easy for me. And I was breathing really hard, and I broke out into a sweat, and my heart rate was real high. And you guys will even laugh at this. My first thought was, wow, have I lost that much fitness that fast? I was like, oh man. And so I kind of pushed through with like breathing out. Like I was just trying to breathe the best that I could. And I did like an hour spin. The next day I got up, I actually went to the gym. I did like this little gym routine with nothing with my upper body or anything. I was like, same thing. I was huffing and puffing like crazy at the gym. And I was like, man, ribs are like, I know they're painful, but this is really weird. And then the next day it started to get worse in that, like when I was sitting around the house, it sounded like I was running, but I wasn't. And then I started to get this really bad cough, and I started to get like what felt like you could hear it like fluid in my back. Like if I coughed, you could actually hear like it sounded like water moving in my back. I was like, that's really weird. And so I kept texting my friend Marge saying, because she broke her ribs or fractured her ribs a while ago. I said, did you have this when you fractured ribs? Like this coughing's getting worse. And I said, I don't feel like I'm in that much pain, but I can't breathe. I just kept saying I can't breathe. And I'd I have stairs in my house, and I'd go up my stairs. I get to the top of the stairs, and it would sound like I just ran like an all-out 800. And I was like, this is weird. So she said, if you're that worried about it, why don't you go get a follow-up x-ray? And so I texted actually a friend of mine who's a orthopedic surgeon. And I said, Joel, this is what's going on. And he said, this is another important part of the lesson that I learned is it's really, really important to talk to people that know you and will hear you the right way. And what I mean by that is that because Joel's ridden with me for years on group rides, he knows my pain tolerance. He also knows what kind of bike rider I am. And he knows that I'm not, like I was sort of dismissing it as ribs, but what he heard from me was not stabbing pain, which is what he would hear if I just was dealing with the ribs. But what he heard from me was, I can't breathe properly. And he was like, that's not right. That's not ribs. So he sent me for an x-ray. I just drove to Simon Med, did a little x-ray. And actually they told me the results wouldn't be back till Monday. I thought, okay, no problem. Another day went by. I actually went for a spin on the river path, and same thing. I was breathing really crazy hard. met some friends for a beer that night, coughing like crazy, breathing like crazy. They're like, something's wrong with you. This isn't right. And I thought, no, I think maybe I'm getting a cold too or something. And the next morning I again went through the day and Christmas shopping, all the normal things. So again, we're not really normal, right, as athletes. And I went to get on my trainer again, and Joel called me from him and Bear actually driving up north to go do a mountain bike race. And he didn't even say hello. He just said, Marilyn, you need to go to the emergency room immediately. And I kind of argued with him. I said, really? And he said, no, yeah, you have to go immediately. And so I went to the emergency room immediately, and they redid the x-ray right away. And they looked at me and they said, how are you standing here? Because most people with this, as bad as you have it, wouldn't even be they'd be on a stretcher. And they said I had 3 broken ribs, and the left lung at this point had collapsed a lot. And there was a bunch of fluid in between the lung and the back. I don't know enough about that stuff. The physicians on the call will know what that means. But they looked at me and said, we're going to have to do this procedure right now. And I said, right now? And they said, right now. And they handed me the gown, and they started to scrub up, and they said, we're doing this right now. And I was like, oh, okay. So this got really real, really fast. And so they did the procedure right there. When I woke up, I said, how did it go? And they said, good, you're good, whatever. This is where it gets even crazier. 20 minutes later, they come in and they say, hey, it didn't work. He goes, I'm really, really sorry. He said, I've never had this happen before. I didn't get the tube in the right spot and it didn't work. And so we're going to have to send you by ambulance to Trauma 1 to Banner. And of course, I'm doped up on, they gave me ketamine and all kinds of crazy, was on all kinds of crazy drugs. And they sent me by ambulance to Banner 1, which is then I spent the evening there with the trauma doctors there, where they were able to, do CT scans and figure everything out and get everything situated the right way. And then from that point on, I was in the ER that night till that morning, and it was 7 a.m. that morning. They actually admitted me into Banner and went through the normal steps of recovering from it. So had the chest tube in, and they had to wait till it was done draining enough. And then once it was done draining and my lung was staying inflated on its own, then they stopped the what's keeping your lung inflated and see if your lung will do it on its own. And then once it's doing that on its own for 6 hours, then they take the tube out, and then they monitor you another 6 hours. And then once everything looks like it's doing it on its own, they send you home. And they said from the original fracture, the original 3 broken ribs, probably one of them actually punctured the lung, and that's why. And then I went about my life, and so it was the fluid building up in my back that was slowly collapsing the lung more and more and more as the week went on. So I was really lucky. And even once I was at the hospital, they put me, when I was sitting in the trauma at Banner the second time, I kept, I was asking things about the tubes and stuff, and the lady came in, she goes, I don't know, I've never seen anybody like this awake. And so again, I kept hearing things that this is not normal. And then when they put oxygen on me, when I got upstairs, they said, this is really weird. Your oxygen's at 100%. We never see that with this. They're like, let's take your oxygen off and see if it stays at 100%. And it did. So even though I had, all this trauma, and for a good part of it, just one lung, as athletes, we're really pretty different. And I think it's important. I think the lessons I learned is that it's important to, one, know your insurance policy better. Well, I guess I'm new American, so I'll learn that a little bit better. But also that our pain tolerance is different than most people, which we already know. And so when something doesn't seem right, really having the right people to hear you the right way, but even just, it was definitely my mistake to not get completely checked out when I first went to the ER. But even then, then they might have been able to discover that I actually had 3 broken ribs and that it had punctured the lung had I done a CT scan there. And then the lung wouldn't have gotten as bad as it did. So I think, and all of you might be thinking like, yeah, that's what we would have done in the first place, you dumbass. And so that's maybe a lesson only I had to learn for all of us. And you're all thinking, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have even, I would have just gotten an ambulance right from the crash. But, it's not the first time I'm saying this story out loud, but it's not the first time I've actually heard these kinds of stories, even from other people. So I wanted to, one, check in with everyone and let everyone know I'm okay and I'm home and I'm healing, and, this kind of injury, I will make a full recovery, and I'll be, I wasn't trying to be a hero or anything like that in between the two things. I just didn't know. And now I know. And as I left the hospital the second time, and the doctors came in and I said, what can I use as my guide as a return to sport? And they said, well, pain will be your guide. And I said, no, it won't. And then the other doctor, she kind of cued in, she knew, and she said, oh, you're like the bull riders we have come in. And I said, yeah. And so it's really important that your doctors understand that what is like for normal people, as far as like, oh, well, pain will be your guide, is not necessarily true for us. And I know that everybody's different on that scale and on that level. But I certainly, and I've always known I have a really high pain tolerance. It's a blessing and a curse, right? But it's also just the knowing what cues, like I knew something wasn't right. I knew that whole week. I was like, something's not right. This isn't a normal fractured rib. Something's going on here. So that's the story. And if any of you, like I say, I appreciate the support and the understanding. When I did get the call from Joel and he said, you got to go to the emergency room right now, I basically, I said, right now? I said, I've been walking around like this for 6 days. I was like, let me have a shower. So I had a shower. I got my stuff together. I drove myself up there. I called Marge and said, this is the code to my house. Make sure my cat's okay, because I didn't know how things were going to go. And I called Jennifer because she looks after a lot of admin stuff for me. And I said, can you just make sure you take care of from here? I said, I don't really know what's going to happen from here. So make sure you let the team know what's going on. So I appreciate you guys being understanding of that, and, letting her be the sort of the point of contact there and until I could and all of that. So that's I just wanted to get us all together before the holidays. And I mean, we're in the middle of some, Hanukkah and Christmas is coming, and it's the holiday season and everyone's enjoying family and fun and all that. But I wanted you guys to see I'm home. I am in one piece. And it was just a crazy, crazy series of events. I kept thinking, if I hear one more time, that's not normal. I was like, I get it. I get it. But hopefully just even little bits of that story might, if you're ever in a similar situation, will help you make good decisions for yourself. And maybe you would already make those. Maybe these are just dumb decisions I made for myself. So, but yeah, so anyone, you can put your hand up if you have something you want to say, share, contribute. I know we've got some physicians in the group and stuff too, so some really smart, experienced people. So there's something you want to add.
So what do you know of your recovery? What do you know? What can you expect?
So right now they just told me, like, take it pretty easy for 2 weeks so that the lung can completely build, like, we make sure it sticks to the wall really well and that it doesn't have a chance of recollapsing. I also still have the 3, as far as broken ribs go, it goes like 1, 2, and 3. 3 would be like I need surgery. So mine are a 1. It's just that, so I didn't need surgery, but they are still broken, and they think there must have been some kind of sliver that punctured the lung. So they said I need to be really careful that I don't do anything that would repuncture the lung. And basically these first 2 weeks, it's like they just want to make sure, like, once it's inflated and the hole is sealed when you leave the hospital, it shouldn't recollapse. But they just want to make sure that it's, that and anyone who's a physician, if I'm describing this wrong, please butt in on me, but it's like the lung stays sealed up against the wall, and that the lungs keep doing their job. And so they just said for these 2 weeks, be really, really careful. And then I did ask, I said, and be really careful meant like I can go for a walk. And then they didn't have a lot of guidelines, to be honest. They said, they said let pain be your guide, but they said that's not really a good indicator for me. So they just basically said until I go for my follow up X-ray on the 26th to just really chill out and not do a whole lot. And so other than go for a walk. And so I was like, okay, that's fair, that's fine. And then from there, as far as return to sport, I reached out to Dr. Jeff Schilt. He was part of the Endurance Corner team and a good friend, and he works with he's a physician that works with cerebral palsy children, but he's also a really good sports physician, and he's known me for, oh my gosh, well over 10 years. And he goes with USA Cycling to World Championships, the Olympics. He's been the team doctor for United Healthcare, a bunch of, big pro bike races and all that kind of stuff. So he really knows athletes. And he's going to send me a really good return to sport post this kind of thing so that I don't make any mistakes where, it should be pretty straightforward and not that complicated. And it should be that I make like completely full recovery and there's no setbacks and there's no real problems or anything like that. But I've lost a little trust in myself over the process on that with the should be's because it's like I made a few mistakes in between there. So yeah, it should be pretty simple, but he's going to give me a very detailed, because he's seen this a lot. He's actually even been through it himself. And so he's going to give me a return to sport. And he also has ridden with me a lot and stuff. So he knows how hard I like to go. He's done lots of Ironmans himself. He's done Ironmans with me, knew me through my whole pro career, all that kind of stuff. So he's going to give me a really good return to sport protocol, which is nice. It's nice to have that. And then I'll hang on to that. I'll stick it in my file of many. So if it ever happens to I please hope it never happens to anyone else. But if it does, we'll have that in the files. So yeah. Yeah, Bear?
I wanted to ask, are the points of rib fracture, are they smooth and clean enough to ensure that there isn't any sharpness that can gouge you?
I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if that's like what happened originally. They didn't tell me. I'm sure that if that came up in the CT scan in all of these, they took 1 million scans of me. They were x-raying me like every 6 hours for 3 days. So I think if it was that case, they would have told me, and they didn't say. So yeah, and maybe that's something, obviously when I go in 2 weeks, I doubt they would be able to see it or anything like that on the x-ray, but yeah,
Sure.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah. Any other food for thought, short stories you want to share, information, questions you have, anything like that? Nothing like that?
Maybe. Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Just a quick observation, something that really struck me that I've certainly experienced as well, is that when you get hurt, you're riding or whatever, you fall, and how to manage that adrenaline rush and when it wears off. Because the temptation with that adrenaline is to jump right back on the bike, right? They keep going. And just having a presence of mind, how to manage that. So I'm most glad your bike wasn't functional.
Right.
Because that's your bent with the adrenaline, is just, I'm fine, and jump and go. And that can be a really bad thing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a really good point too. And it was, it was funny when I was sitting there, it was really nice. The group that I was riding with, they all stopped. Every single person that was on the ride stopped. And they, they were all, I was like, oh, I'm fine. You guys go, keep riding. And, they were really nice about staying with me and making sure that, I didn't want an ambulance, so they got me an Uber home and that kind of thing. So, but it is important to know that when that adrenaline wears off, holy man, it's a whole different thing. And I think, Yeah, and like I say, everybody's tolerance is a little different too. I mean, somebody else might not have the same series of events even happen just because they react differently to crashing or pain. I think it's how much you're conditioned to that kind of stuff. I've been crashing since I've been 9 years old. So like crashing off horses and bikes and tumbling through rings and face planting and all that kind of stuff. So it's also good to remember that when you're really conditioned to something, it can be harder to assess how you really are. So that's another thing, like just to sit and wait a minute and see how you really are. Yeah. Alrighty, team. Well, that was I didn't want to take a ton of your time. I obviously, like I say, I can't thank you enough for all the support. I mean, it's been really emotional actually. I had a couple little emotional breakdowns. I'm overwhelmed by the amount of support and love and really, really appreciate it. And I obviously want everyone to have an amazing, happy holidays. And like from here, enjoy the holidays and, have great time with family and friends and know that I am home. I can't fly for the next 8 weeks and I can't scuba dive anymore, but those things. So I will be close to home all holidays. And I'll definitely keep everybody posted how the recovery is going. So far, so good. I'm not huffing and puffing while I'm talking to you guys, which would have not been the case a week ago. I think, Sarah, even when you and I talked, I was kind of like struggling a little bit with like just being short of breath the whole time we were talking. Everyone who talked to me that week said that I sound a lot different this week. So maybe you even notice a difference. Yeah, I think I wasn't aware. So
I still think you have to watch all of Netflix.
I do. I'm finding some good series for sure. So
the whole thing, and once you've watched it all,
it's connecting.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much, team. Again, thank you for your support. If you have any other things that you want to add, questions, feedback, anything you want to say, obviously we've got the team chat. I love the support in there. And happy holidays, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye.